And KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning here. Before we get to our great friend Chuck Ambrose, quickly, Palm Springs Mike, what do you want to say?
How you doing, man?
Well, good. We've got a big newsmaker on, so.
Oh, yeah. No, a fresh flight back from Vegas. Right now I'm going to get physical. I'm going to get a physical at the doctor's.
Well, we really appreciate that. If everybody would call in and give us this much information on what they're doing.
Well, I just want you to know that I'm going to get physical with them if I don't get the answers I want.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Look,
it can go either way.
What you do behind closed doors is your own business.
So what's going on tomorrow morning? I just tuned in, and there's a function at the Junction I don't know nothing about.
Well, we got a Christmas party. Everybody's invited if you'd like to attend.
Really? Do you have room for everybody inside? Because I do get cold.
No, we don't have room for anybody. It's just first come, first serve. It's survival of the fittest on the radio.
What is this, some kind of new game show?
Well, this is what happens when you leave town.
I'll bring my muckalucks and a tarp. I'll look like I belong in the tent city. It's not a big deal.
You'll be inside. You'll be in shelter.
6 a.m.
6 to 9, big boy.
What nonsense is that?
That's when the program starts, yes.
Huh. So I saw Bill O'Reilly. I got to give that double thumbs up. And then, of course, I went and watched the Broncos turn the Ducks into soup. That was pretty cool. So, it's not a big news day for me, Kevin. Just, all the plane flights went well. That's good.
Well, I really appreciate the insight.
Well, I'm full of it. I can give it to you every day if you need it.
Well, about 6:05 every day would be great.
Oh. Yeah, that ain't happening. Okay, I'm like Ronnie when it comes to that. A little late to the start. So, I'm sorry. Not a big day for me, just for you, apparently.
Well,
right?
Vegas Mike, we're gonna let you go now.
No, I want to go because I got to go get physical. Okay. We'll talk later. It's not a big deal. You're not in a good mood today. I can tell that.
No, we just have other people to get to.
Well, no, go. I'll talk later.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Holly in Caldwell, quickly, what would you like to say here at KIDO Talk Radio?
Well, you guys are talking about the CBD oil, and, there's basically marijuana in itself is just an herb.
Well,
I guess the part that bothers me is there's all kinds of research all over the internet about CBD oil. They sell it on Amazon.
Well, why don't we talk about this at 8:30?
Oh, is that when you're talking about? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't tell me that when I called in. Sorry.
Well, he didn't. No, he didn't know. I just made that up. So we'll just do it at 8:35.
Oh, okay. Well, at 8:30, you want me to call back at 8:30 and tell you what I think about that?
Yes, we'll be standing by.
All right. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Holly. And here, Chuck Ambrose, retired U.S. attorney, best-selling author. Thought that would be quick. We appreciate your patience, sir.
Not a problem. Do you want me to talk about my doctor's appointment this morning or something else?
Well, if anybody can make sense of what's going on with the FBI and Mueller and everything else, it would be you, sir. So the texting, the intent from someone who has prosecuted folks at the federal level, what does this all mean?
Well, let me try and lay it out. First of all, let's start with the bombshell text that came out this week indicating that there was a meeting in the office of the Deputy Director of the FBI, that being Andrew McCabe. In that meeting, you have this clown Peter Strzok and his mistress Lisa Page, who is an FBI attorney. And following that meeting, there are texts between Strzok and Page indicating that while they don't think Hillary can lose, they can't take that chance, and they have to have an insurance policy to make sure that Donald Trump is not elected. This is around the same time that the Clinton campaign pays Fusion GPS for this absolutely ridiculous dossier on Trump. And there's evidence now to suggest that the FBI paid to get a copy, which they then, again, Mr. Strzok, probably uses as the basis for the electronic surveillance of Trump associates in the Trump Towers. Now, I say probably because overlaying all of this mess you have the fact that the Department of Justice, which has the records which could explain all this, is stonewalling Congress and doesn't want to give that information to the committees which have subpoenaed it. Stroke then waters down the Comey exoneration press conference language, taking out the gross negligence language, which is mirroring the statute and which would provide essentially a verbatim case for indictment of Mrs. Clinton. He also waters down other sections of it, including the fact that it was very likely that her negligence had resulted in leaks of classified information to foreign actors. Then he is also in charge, this being Mr. Stroke, of the investigation, if you want to call it that. That's probably the biggest joke in all of this, into the Clinton email scandal. Now, let's compare the manner in which Michael Flynn was treated with the manner in which Stroke treated Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills, both of whom were Clinton aides. Those two individuals are given immunity, which is something that doesn't happen unless you suspect them of having been complicit in or committing a crime. They're given immunity. They are not interviewed under oath. Neither was Hillary. They are given their computers and other devices back, which amounts to a return of evidence. They're not charged with lying to the FBI, even though their lies concerned very real crimes. And on the other hand, you have Michael Flynn, who is interviewed under oath and lies, we guess, about non-crimes, because if Mueller's actually going to follow his charter, which is to investigate Russian collusion in the election, they had no business asking Michael Flynn about conversations that occurred after the election, and yet those are the lies that he's charged with. They trump up this indictment on him to allege that those statements made months after the election somehow obstructed the investigation into what happened during the election. Meanwhile, Comey gets violating himself by leaking classified government documents to the press in order to get his best friend Mueller appointed as special counsel to investigate not Hillary, but the Trump so-called collusion. That appointment is made by the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who was the attorney who oversaw the diluted investigation into Uranium One, where the Clintons actually did collude with the Russians, selling 20% of our uranium to Putin and his goons in return for millions of dollars. The Clintons, of course, are not charged with anything. She's not even interviewed under oath. And a cooperating FBI undercover source who had the details on all this is issued a gag order to keep him quiet. Mueller then, with his special counsel appointment, hires Stroke, his mistress, and several other Clinton donors, including Andrew Weissman, to run this so-called unbiased probe into Trump's collusion while they ignore the Clintons. Weissman, who attended the Clinton non-victory party, is the guy who put one of the largest accounting firms in the United States out of business by running a defective and biased prosecution against them, which was reversed by the Supreme Court 9-0. And then last week we have Rod Rosenstein called before Congress, and he said, oh, there's nothing to see here. Everything's fine. Let's move on. Bob Mueller's a swell guy. We can trust him, and we don't have to worry about any of this. So the bottom line is we have no evidence whatsoever that the Russians colluded to fix the election, but we are getting mountains of evidence now that there was a party trying to fix the election, and that was our own Justice Department and FBI. That's about as simple as I can put it.
Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us here, retired U.S. attorney, retired federal prosecutor at KIDO Talk Radio. So, Chuck, as someone who has worked with the FBI, you don't say these things like someone on talk radio or the rest of us that have never been in the arena. Where are we with the credibility of the FBI in this matter, sir?
Well, I hope everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm including those citizens who might end up on juries and who are listening to agents testify. I hope everybody knows that there's a distinction between what people in the business have called the boots versus suits. The worker bee agents on the ground, by and large, are people with mountains of integrity. They work hard. They take their oaths of office seriously. Unfortunately, the suits, the management in D.C., especially during the last 8 years where every agency we had was politicized to hell and back, that's a different world entirely. That is literally the swamp that everyone talks about. And you can see it from what is now coming to light into this whole mess. There was another revelation in the last couple of days, and it concerns the Trump presidential transition team documents. The way those documents are held is generally, even though they are defined by statute, regulation, and court decisions as private documents, privileged private documents, they're generally held for convenience by the General Services Administration, the GSA. It's like if you or I had a collection of documents for our own private business or for conversations with our attorneys, we might take them to a storage unit down the road, and because we didn't have room in the house, we'd put them in that locker. Mueller and his guys go and grab tens of thousands of these documents without a warrant, simply because they find another deep stater in the GSA who's willing to turn them over. There can be no more clear violation of attorney ethics and the procedures that are supposedly in place to protect everyone than that. Whatever information they gleaned from that totally unlawful seizure is going to be the proverbial fruit of the poisonous tree. And it is beyond me how this guy, that being Robert Mueller, can look himself in the mirror every day and continue to supposedly operate this unbiased investigation with everything that's come to light.
Chuck, please stand by. More coming up with our great friend Chuck Ambrose. If you have a question about the investigation, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Today's Kevin Miller Newsmaker brought to you by our friends at American Revolution Vodka, locally owned, veteran-run. Check them out today, American Revolution Vodka. You're listening to Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. And back with our great friend Chuck Ambrose. Let's go to the phones. We go to Pro-Life. Pro-Life, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, Mr. Ambrose. Jeff Sessions recused himself having to do with the Mueller investigation, and I've never heard where I think a person should be able to just unrecuse themselves and get totally involved, and that's what I want to ask you, if Mr. Sessions can do that.
You know, I think Sessions, and I'll give him a little bit of deference on this, even though I think it's the worst appointment the president has made. If we start just from the political equation, he was pulling somebody out of the Senate that was already a very slim majority, and we can see that that has cost the seat already. He has been extremely ineffective in willing to deal with some of these swamp rats that are still in DOJ, in my opinion, like Rosenstein and several others. We've heard recently about Bruce Orr and his wife being involved with the Fusion GPS group. When Sessions recused himself, he was trying to follow the guidelines which say that you should avoid even an appearance of impropriety if your ethics are being called into question. Now, compare his behavior in that regard to everything we now know about Mueller. It's night and day. One side is trying to do the right thing, at least in terms of the recusal. The other side is ignoring every ethical conflict known to man and just marching head on into battle with no ammunition. Can he unrecuse himself? I wish he would. I think that would really save the president some heartburn, because it's the only way that Mueller is going to get terminated, apparently. Rosenstein doesn't have either the ethics or guts to do it. I think as long as he can safely say that I, have gone back and looked over this, and to me there's not even an appearance of impropriety given my bumping into a Russian ambassador in a buffet line, and I have reconsidered this, and given the disastrous extent to which this investigation has gone, I've let it go too long. They've had a year, they've produced nothing, and I'm calling them out on it. So I wish he would. He technically can. It's his decision.
Hey, thanks for your answer.
No problem at all.
All right, Pro-Life, thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together. And we continue on with our great friend, Chuck Ambrose. So what will happen? Does anybody have enough guts to – I mean, I know Jim Jordan is going crazy on this. What's going to happen?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen. Here's what I hope happens. I hope the president calls Sessions into his office and says, look, regardless of your recusal decision, I am directing you right now to give Congress every record they have asked for and to call into account those in your department who are stonewalling and refusing to release these records. There's no basis for that. Once that happens and the whole truth comes to light about this coup that was attempted. I mean, we are really at the point right now where the Russians didn't collude, our own FBI and Justice Department did. And the polls now indicate that the country is waking up to that fact finally. So I think there's less and less political danger to him other than in the little club of 100 they call the Senate and the rest of the deep state. I think the country would be behind him if he just terminated this mess and got on with the agenda. But, the way the special counsel statute is set up, he does not have the authority to move in and terminate it. I think I indicated before, if I looked out the window and saw a pig flying, I might think that Mueller was actually going to wrap this up and said I couldn't find anything. But given the total lack of integrity we have seen in that investigation so far, I do not see that happening. So push is going to have to come to shove at some point, and that point, I believe, is when Congress gets the full amount of records to cast the full light of day on just how big a biased, unethical, unlawful mess this has been from the get-go.
All right, Chuck, let's talk a little bit about a big honor for you with your secret identity.
Oh, yes, thanks very much. Over the weekend, the first book in my crime drama series, written under the pen name Mark Rainer, Marcrainer, actually made it to number one in one of the Amazon bestseller lists. So, yeah, I'm tickled to death about that, and the sales are going very well, and couldn't be happier with it.
Well, pretty soon you're going to be closing in on your old friend Grisham.
I think I have miles to go in that regard. It would be nice, but I'm not expecting that to happen anytime soon. That would require a Hollywood producer to call, and none have yet. Well,
you never know who's listening. By the way, as someone who has achieved so much in one field, what's it like to be an independent author in the other? You've kind of shared that with me before, but everybody wants to write a book. Everybody has a bestseller in them. What's it like for you? What's been the experience? What can you share that with us?
Well, I might not agree with the president of Amazon or the CEO on much other than what he has done for independent authors. The typical game in the traditional publishing realm is you fire out 100 or 1,000 proposals to agents. If you're in the top lucky 5%, you get one. If you're in 1% after that, a publisher picks up your book, and then, away your career goes if you're lucky again. If you don't sell out the first run, that book goes out of print, and you're just done. Thanks to Amazon and their print-on-demand and Kindle programs and their support of independent authors, you don't have to play that game anymore. And there are several traditionally published authors who have stopped going that way, and they are now self-publishing themselves. For me, it's been a crazy ride because the first month, I think, the first book sold 37 copies, and I was expecting that the expense of publishing it might pay for itself in about 10 years. But by month 3, it was selling 1,000 copies a month, and that certainly was enough incentive to keep the series going. And it's just been an amazing, pleasant surprise. I tell a lot of people that writing is like law in one area, and that is they're both kind of overlay careers. There are certainly skills and matters of expertise that you acquire in those professions, but in law, you take whatever case comes in the door and you have to apply the law to that other field of expertise. And in writing, you're writing about whatever you choose to, so it's not as reactive, but you're still applying a new skill set to another subject matter. So it's been a very fun, entertaining, and gratifying second career for me, and it's nice to be here in Idaho pursuing it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. We wish you the utmost success, and if people want to check out your series, how can they do that on Amazon?
Again, just plug in Mark Rainer, Marcrainer. All 5 books are available on Amazon in paperback and in Kindle, and most are available in audiobooks if people prefer that kind of medium.
Well, Chuck, thank you, and certainly we'll keep you busy keeping us updated. We appreciate your time, sir.
Not a problem, Kevin. Thanks for all that you do.
Thank you. Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Don't forget, tomorrow it is the big Kevin Miller KIDO Talk Radio Christmas party, a party so big that we do it every couple years. We hope to see everybody there. We've gotten a few RSVPs. My friend Gary said to me yesterday, Kevin, are you going to have enough people there? I go, well, we'll see what happens. If not, we'll just run a loop of maybe Last Christmas or All I Want for Christmas Is You. Thursday will be at the new CapEd location on Overland. Looking forward to that, seeing a lot of dignitaries in Meridian, and certainly wishing you and yours a very, very Merry Christmas. This is a story we talked a little bit about last hour, and we'll go from the Statesman as opposed to the Channel 7 report, which we did last half hour. But you've got a guy, Mr. Larson. He's applied for a building permit in Garden City, and he wants to sell CBD oil. But that's illegal in Idaho. So the folks in Garden City said, not so fast, Michael Larson. You're not going to get that building permit. So he wants to, make this happen. He says that his CBD oil does not contain the THC, the big component in marijuana. Now, the state and the city say, okay, we need to have it tested again and again and again. It goes back to a 2015 Attorney General's opinion stating that oil extracted from cannabis plants are considered a controlled substance. However, the opinion included a key exemption if you get rid of the THC, the bad stuff. So we'll see what happens. And you have people in Oregon and throughout the country selling the CBDs. In fact, as somebody said earlier, I think it was Holly, that you can buy it on Amazon. I don't know if the Amazon police are going to come to your house. By the way, 18 states allow the use of low THC cannabis oil products for medical reasons and in limited situations or in legal defense. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, 30 states now allow some type of use for medical marijuana. And there we have it. Now, you recall in 2013, state legislators passed a resolution that the state house would never legalize marijuana for any purpose. So here's what it comes down to. You have this man, Mr. Larson. He wants to make it happen. He's going to have to make sure that it gets approval by the state. Now, the Associated Press have obtained records saying the decision to deny Larson's permit has resulted in a month-long back and forth on whether the products contain THC. Now, again, all he has to do, at least in my opinion, is get it tested. So we'll see how this plays out at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And you know what happens when it gets a little dead time of year. we go back to the debate concerning medical and recreational marijuana. And I think, again, when we have a lot of people that disagree with yours truly at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, when they say we should have medical marijuana in this state, we should have legal marijuana. Medical marijuana, if it's used and it's restricted just to people that are sick, then one can't argue with the facts. But many of you that have come from California, again, that was the big thing. We're going to just do medical marijuana. And now they have this cannabis craze where marijuana is legal. I don't understand how you can get around the law in Colorado, in Oregon. Well, I guess when you had a lawbreaker who was the president, President Obama, that anything goes except for traditional marriage. When you have a lawbreaker like President Obama who doesn't enforce federal law, that these states are allowed to legalize marijuana at all. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And this gentleman in Garden City, he's going to go back to this, and he's going to continue to fight, but I don't think that it's going to happen. Now, should it happen? For me personally, not a fan of legalizing marijuana. Medical marijuana, I don't know if there's a way that you can not have people doctor shop, not have people run around and just say, well, I've got this anxiety attack, and I've got to go to the doctor, and the doctor really likes me, and the doctor says that this is going to help soothe my nerves. Don't we have enough problems in the state of Idaho with drinking and driving? Don't we have enough problems in the state of Idaho with people acting irresponsibly when it comes to alcohol? Why would we determine that we should up the ante by allowing people to smoke pot legally? And that's the Trojan horse. If you approve medical marijuana, you're going to give people the pathway to legalize recreational marijuana. Now, we can talk about prohibition. We can talk about this, that, and the other. But let's face it, friends, relatives, and true believers, it's the federal law that is being broken by these other states that need to be enforced. And if the federal government would enforce the federal law, the case is moot. Just like marriage. You had states that said marriage was between a man and a woman. They took them to court. What happened next? The courts overturned everything. Supremacy clause. When's someone going to enforce the supremacy clause when it comes to marijuana? It's been a while since we've heard from our friend Craig at KIDO Talk Radio. Craig, good morning.
Good morning. Well, I don't drive kids to school anymore, so I don't have to get up this early, Kevin, normally.
We lose a lot of people that way.
I don't really have a problem with legalizing marijuana in the state, nor do I have a problem, especially since I've read about the studies, how it does help people. It's helped people with seizures. It's helped people with being able to eat when they're in chemotherapy and they don't want to, things like that. If you look at the amount of booze that's consumed in the state, and when I moved up here decades ago, the liquor stores were closed on Sunday. And for some reason, the liquor stores are now open on Sunday. If you look at the amount of drunk driving and abuse that's related to alcohol, why is alcohol even legal? I don't understand why we even support it, why the state promotes it, because we have state liquor stores. And it's all because of taxation. They don't want to talk about the negative side of it necessarily and how bad it is and how for generations, alcoholism has infected and destroyed families. We just want to look at the taxes.
Right, but one is legal and one is not legal.
Right, and then you go back to the argument of, you were talking about basically the federal statutes overarching the state, the supremacy clause. Mm-hmm. Well, it's very convenient for a lot of people to argue the 10th Amendment on certain things they want for states' rights, and basically not argue that the 10th Amendment for states' rights for other things they don't want. So I mean, it is up to the state. However, considering, a lot of people are basically looking for this. I mean, there's people who drive to Oregon all the time. And, I mean, I think it's like I forget what it is, 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive or something, to own something. But there's people over there all the time. So why not, I mean, if the state's really smart, why don't they basically get the tax money that Oregon's getting and then just control it?
I don't think you can control it, though.
Well, that's the whole thing. You can't. You can't control alcohol consumption. You can't control, illegal things like marijuana. Once they become part of the culture, what do? Turn into a fascist state and start the sniff test on everybody in their car? You can't do that.
Well, but here's the deal. You want to stop drugs in America, just have drug tests. I mean, you have it for certain employers.
That's true. You could do that. You could do it for welfare, too.
Yeah. I mean, if we're serious about stopping the drug abuse in America today, that's what you do.
Well, there's drug abuse and there's drug use, right?
Well, for me, they're the same.
Well, I don't quite see it that way.
I knew you wouldn't.
I see that people use things occasionally in what's called recreational, but occasional users versus chronic users. And there's two different classifications. One's more akin to addiction. The other is more, just occasional use. So one is very much somebody is patterned and develops a dependency because they don't develop their own personality and their emotionality and mature to the point to where they can deal with their life without thinking they have to depend on something. So, I don't know if you can really, and that's human nature to a certain degree. I don't even know if you can, how do you fix that? Start doing genetic and behavioral engineering, and then we're not even we're down the slippery slope. We're at the bottom of the slope at that point. So I don't know if the answer is to really continue to impress more laws and more restrictions and criminalize more people for essentially. And I mean,
well, they are breaking the law, though. They are criminals.
I know. I understand that. So are the people who are selling drugs on the black market. In fact, there's a lot of violence, as you know.
Sure.
And I'm sure you're aware of Mexico. There's a tremendous amount of violence with the cartels and the amount of money they make, and so by legalizing that or decriminalizing it to a certain degree, you basically take the money out of the hands of very, very bad people. So anyway, that's the opinion I had this morning, which is kind of contrary to what you would think I would normally have. But on this one, I just see things getting more severe and more punitive, and I don't see how that helps anybody, honestly. Just the police department and their budget.
Exactly. Craig, I appreciate you, brother. Merry Christmas.
All right, you too, Kevin. Enjoy, and Merry Christmas to you and your wife and everybody out there.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Tea Party Bob joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you this morning? You're on one of my favorite subjects.
Imagine
I have to tell you one more time that medicinal marijuana in the form of CBD oil is safe. And in fact, the only reason we don't have CBD oil available in Idaho is because of Butch Otter's veto. Big Pharma does not want CBD oil legalized because they are synthesizing it. And they're synthesizing it and going to charge a heck of a lot more than what it would cost for the CBD oil. This is an economic problem that we're going to have to deal with the Big Pharma again. Is it any different with the opioids? They get their fingers into the pie and you can't get them out of it. They need to stop being allowed to intrude into what we do in our states. The lobbying has to stop. If you go take a look at all of the representatives and the officials that ran for election the last time, you're going to find that Big Pharma donated to almost every one of them. This CBD oil is safe. It's been proven safe. The National Institute of Health is now actually investigating how safe it is. And in fact, they have given money to Israel so that they can actually investigate the CBD oil and how helpful it will be to different types of diseases. So when you sit here and say that it's bad, you're wrong. And you're so wrong, I can't believe you actually said that. You need to take a good hard look at the facts, and I don't think anybody here has actually done enough reading or enough research to find out what's really true and what isn't true. Because when you do dig into the facts, you find that this particular oil is saving lives and making people's lives easier to live with some of the diseases they have. So give everybody a break and stop complaining about the marijuana and start thinking about the people who actually need a medicine to help them. You can control the marijuana. You need medicinal CBD oil here in this state. There's 1,500 people who need it. And it's time we changed our dumb thinking and got back to some normalcy and did some research.
Right, but if you're right and everybody else is wrong, who's going to make the change?
That is the big problem, and thank you so much for bringing that up. There is no educational format for this, and we need to provide an educational format for it. Is it any different than any other disease? You find cures in very different places. There are many diseases that get cured by herbs, for crying out loud. But nobody wants to look at it because we're so stuck with this allopathic outlook with the MDs saying, pharmaceuticals, that's the way to go. And yet we find 60,000 people dying of opioids because they prescribe them like they're candy. They can be just as wrong as everyone else. The educational process of teaching people about the good or bad things with pharmaceuticals or with medicine itself has to do with bringing it to the people so they understand it. Because if you leave the doctors and the pharmacies involved in it, and they're the only ones making the decision, you're going to get nothing but bad decisions for the populace. The people who actually need these facilities, they need the CBD oil, are not going to get them.
All
because
right.
nobody's going to fight for them.
And you're fighting, so we will continue on. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day, Mr. Miller. See you tomorrow at the party.
All right. I don't think we'll be talking about that at the party. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And we continue on taking your phone calls. Let's go to Dwight in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dwight.
Good morning, Kevin. Kevin, I agree with you that using marijuana for recreational purposes is a bad idea. And I also think that a lot of people who use it for medicinal purposes or so-called medicinal purposes are really using it because they want to get high. I got a solution to this. By the way, I also want to say that I strongly agree with Bob. The biggest drug pusher, the biggest and most dangerous drug pushers in this town, in my opinion, are the doctors, St. Al's, St. Luke's. It is absolutely immoral, the peddling of drugs that goes on that are really harmful. There's a solution that involves no drugs for people who have pain, all sorts of issues. And that solution is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques. It is the most widely known, the most widely used, and the most free information of the so-called energy healing methods. EFT is also, the nickname is tapping. If you go onto YouTube, you go on the internet, you find tons of information. EFT directly gets rid of the anxiety. And anxiety is the universal cause of all addiction. Different people medicate their anxiety using different things. And the other thing I'd like to say is that with jury nullification, you couldn't get a prosecution, a successful prosecution of certainly the use of CBD oil or the sale of CBD oil in the state, and you probably could not get a successful prosecution of even recreational marijuana use. The way to get rid of recreational marijuana use is education and giving people alternatives to marijuana to help them to feel better. And this can be done without any drug. They do not have to go to pharmaceuticals. Bob is right. The suppression of marijuana is coming from the drug industry. And the drug industry, because they have so much money, owns the media, and they own the politicians.
Dwight, great call. Thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. And to Kevin Miller in the morning. Cindy, you got 20 seconds to bring us home. Go. Cindy? Well, we lost Cindy. All right, Glenn Beck is next, followed by Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity. Ram, I thank you very much. We appreciate it. Great job, as always. Wishing everybody a great day. God bless, and keep the faith.